After being reborn, I deliberately avoided any interaction with my autistic childhood sweetheart. She said that Makoto, the one who loved making dirty jokes, was her son. So I gave up my seat beside her and let him sit there instead. She said the way I tried to control her was as annoying as her mother. So I stopped walking to and from school with her, and stopped checking on her or caring for her. She believed Makoto and insisted she wasn't sick. So I threw away the medicine I used to carry for her at all times. Sensing my change, she still firmly believed that I would apply to the same university as her, just because my family was on the verge of bankruptcy and relied on her family's financial support. But in this second life, who says there's only one way to live? And how could I possibly spend my whole life tied to someone who's ill? I just don't know this time, when Willow has an episode, whether Makoto, the so-called little son, can still keep her warm like before. Chapter 1. Hey, do you really have autism? Makoto tilted his head, grinning as he poked Willow's arm with his finger. Then he added, but weren't you pretty talkative in bed yesterday? How come you weren't autistic then? Willow's ears instantly turned red. Her usually expressionless face showed a flicker of vivid surprise as she stammered, I didn't. The class fell silent for a moment. Then, after a beat, an uproar of chatter broke out. Oh my God, I just heard Willow speak. That's the second time she's talked today, right? That's hilarious. Looks like unconventional methods work fast, unlike some people. The speaker shot me a meaningful glance before trailing off at the perfect moment. I lowered my eyes expressionlessly and flipped through my book, as if I hadn't noticed they were talking about me. It was indeed the second time Willow had spoken on her own today. The first time was when the teacher was about to rearrange seats and planned to have me sit next to Willow. For once, she expressed her opinion clearly. I don't want to. Her words came out smooth and natural, so much so that even the teacher froze on the podium. After calling Willow's mother, the teacher nodded in relief. Then we won't change it. Makoto, tone it down. Don't bully Willow. Amid the murmurs, I stood up. Before I could do anything, Willow spoke first. Her voice was filled with irritation. I told you, I'm not taking medicine anymore. If you feed me one pill, I'll throw one away. For a moment, I felt dazed. Scenes from my previous life overlapped with the present. Her tone, her gaze, they were exactly the same as before. The whispers around me slipped into my ears. God, doesn't George feel embarrassed? Willow must be so sick of him. Who would want someone chasing after them to force-feed medicine right after school? And don't you think Willow talks quite a lot in front of Makoto? She actually seems pretty normal. Moody girl and cheerful sunshine boy, I'm shipping this couple already. Meanwhile, the cheerful sunshine Makoto they were talking about was gently pinching Willow's pale cheek, smiling as he asked, really, am I that special to you? Why are you blushing again? So cute. Willow's eyelashes trembled slightly as she hurriedly averted her gaze. The moment her eyes met mine, however, they turned cold again, completely devoid of the vivid emotion she'd just shown. Something stirred in my heart. Could it be she was reborn too? Is that why she refused to change seats? Heh, even better. Chapter 2. After school, Willow slung her backpack over her shoulder and walked out of the classroom ahead of me. The driver waiting at the school gate, Tony, froze for a moment. You're not waiting for young Master Wong? Willow pressed her lips together and didn't answer. Tony was already used to it. He shot me a slightly reproachful look and said in a low voice, young Master Wong, why aren't you keeping up? What if something happens to Miss? How am I supposed to explain it to Madam? You see, he addressed me as young master with respect, but in reality, he had never taken me seriously. Then again, it was my own fault. My family had declined, and we now depended on the Liu family's support just to survive. Tony, let's go. Willow Liu, who rarely spoke these days, suddenly opened her mouth. Tony was so surprised that he forgot whatever he had been about to say to scold me. Miss, you spoke to me. Tony grinned foolishly, as if overwhelmed by the sudden surprise, even forgetting to stop strangers from getting close. Wow. Willow, is this your family's car? How much does a car like this cost? Tony frowned, about to pull Makoto aside, when he saw Willow take the initiative to open the car door. Fidgeting with the hem of her clothes, Willow spoke uneasily. If you like it, I'll give it to you. Makoto's eyes widened as he burst out laughing. Ha 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 ha. Do you even know what you're saying? You're seriously going to give it to me? Willow nodded earnestly, then got out of the car as if it were the most natural thing, intending to let Makoto sit inside. Tony's eyebrow twitched sharply as he looked at Makoto in shock. Anyone familiar with Willow knew that she hated others invading her personal space the most. Even I had spent half a year before being allowed to sit in the same car as her. But Makoto was different. With Willow, he was the exception, a first unlike any before. Makoto reached out and patted her head, like petting an obedient kitten, and said, my God, you're way too innocent. Aren't you afraid of getting scammed? All right, I won't tease you anymore. See you tomorrow, my good little desk mate. He walked away humming, radiating carefree energy from head to toe. Willow seemed infected by his mood, her eyes and brows carrying a faint smile. Only when even his silhouette disappeared from sight did she finally turn around. And right in front of me, she slammed the car door shut with a loud bang. Tony had already forgotten my existence. Gone was his usual calm professionalism. He looked like he couldn't wait to rush back and report everything he had just seen to Willow's mother. The car drove off into the distance, leaving nothing but exhaust fumes behind. I lowered my head and glanced at my phone. The ride-hailing driver would arrive in 5 minutes. Good thing I hadn't been counting on them. Chapter 3. That night, the Liu household was filled with laughter, while next door, my home felt lifeless and suffocating. The moment I stepped inside, my father's furious voice came crashing down on me. What's wrong with you? Why didn't you come back with her? Can't you even handle something as simple as taking care of someone? I raised you for nothing. My mother cautiously brought him a cup of tea. Stop scolding the child. Calm down. But my father knocked the cup out of her hands. It hit the ground and shattered into sharp fragments. Still fuming, he slammed the door and stormed out. The villa, already stripped of most of its furniture, felt even emptier with one less person inside. My mother sighed and spoke gently. George, did you have a disagreement with Willow? You know Willow, she's simple-minded. Be more tolerant and patient with her. Our family still has to rely on the Liu family in the future. Back when my father hadn't squandered all of our family's assets, we stood on equal footing with the Liu family. At the very least, we didn't have to bend over backward just because of a single word from Willow's mother. I paused in the middle of picking up the broken shards and said, Mom, I'm in my final year of high school. I'll be going to university soon. I can rely on myself to earn a living. Why do we have to pin all our hopes on the Liu family, and on someone who gambles? Your father will change. The Liu family lent him money. He'll turn things around soon. My mother's voice grew quieter and quieter, lacking any real conviction. But Mom, do you know? Even if I did as you wished and tried to please Willow, my father would never quit gambling. Not until he had mortgaged this villa, the last thing propping up his pride, and still lost everything. Only then would he jump from the top floor and end his life. In the end, we would still have no choice but to live at the mercy of others, clinging to the Liu family. My hand tightened unconsciously until a shard of porcelain cut into my palm. The sharp pain snapped me out of my memories. My mother cried out in alarm and carefully disinfected my wound. At that moment, I received a message from Willow on WeChat. You're disgusting. So annoying. Stop bothering me from now on. People with autism often seem unaware of social nuances. They don't consider others' feelings and tend to speak bluntly. In my previous life, I spent over a decade by Willow's side. It took immense effort to teach her how to express dislike in a gentler, kinder way. Instead of resorting to hitting, smashing things, or hurling insults, she learned slowly, but she did make some progress. When faced with the cup of warm milk her mother brought her to help her sleep, she no longer knocked it over in frustration like before. Instead, she calmly said, I don't want it. Her mother was so moved that she burst into tears. I stood nearby, smiling faintly, even though beneath my long sleeves were scars, burn marks from the hot water she had once splashed on me, scars that would never fade. I lowered my eyes and typed a reply. All right. Chapter 4. The next morning, my father grabbed my clothes and dragged me to the gate of the Liu residence. With a fawning smile plastered on his face, he asked, Where's Willow? She hasn't left yet, right? The Liu family's butler glanced at him indifferently and said, Miss has already left. Madam instructed that from now on, young Master Wang can go to school on his own. The butler gave an apologetic smile and added, You're aware of our young lady's condition. Her emotions can't handle too much stimulation. My father's expression froze for a long moment before he shot me a vicious glare. I ignored him, dodged the slap he swung at me, and walked toward school as if nothing had happened. The moment I entered the classroom, I saw Willow and Makoto leaning close together, eating breakfast. Willow, I've got no appetite. I only want to eat you. Oh right, why aren't you eating the buns? Oh, I remember now. You already have your own. Willow, who had been eating neatly in small bites, instantly turned bright red. She stammered. Don, don't talk nonsense. One of Makoto's friends burst out laughing. My bro, you've got guts. Forget autism. Even a mute would be forced to talk if they hung around you. Makoto raised his eyebrows smugly and grabbed me as I happened to pass by. George, come help Willow explain. She doesn't actually have autism, right? She's just introverted. There's no way she only talks more in front of me. I pulled my hand back before I could even speak. Willow cut in first. You're different. He's like my mom, nagging and annoying. Not as good as you. The classmates all wore different expressions, each filled with amusement and mockery, as if enjoying a show. Suddenly, I felt exhausted for the person I used to be. Before I was tasked with taking care of Willow, I had been the kind of rich young master others envied. But after taking on that responsibility, I lowered myself to accommodate her, yielding to her in everything. Even a dog shows gratitude after being cared for a few days. In my previous life, if not for that car accident on the way to the Civil Affairs Bureau, I would have been tied to her for life. And yet, she was still like this. Clearly, she had already learned how to communicate normally. She could even smile at strangers. But in front of me, her words were always sharp and hurtful, never considering how I felt. Was it really because she had been warmed by Makoto, that so-called little son, that she became somewhat normal? No, that was the result of over a decade of my effort in my previous life. Yet everyone naturally credited Makoto for it. I looked straight into Willow's eyes and said with a smile, "But I don't have a daughter as old as you." Chapter 5. In my previous life, Willow's mother had already planned out my entire future. Willow would go to a music academy, and I would have to study the obscure field of music therapy. Using the music Willow loved to heal her. In her mother's eyes, this was the most perfect arrangement imaginable. It didn't matter that I wasn't good at music. It didn't matter that the major had poor job prospects. As long as it was useful to Willow, that was enough. And as a reward, the Liu family would provide my father with financial support and business opportunities. Back then, at school, Willow would often be triggered by certain sounds or even someone's unintentional movements. Then she would have an emotional breakdown, becoming restless and agitated. She would flip over desks, claw at her own fingers uncontrollably until they were covered in blood. All I could do was put down my notes and softly comfort her under the complicated gazes of everyone around us. Right, back then, where was her little son? He was in the crowd of onlookers, whispering with others as he watched. Willow might have been deceiving herself, but I hadn't forgotten. On the day of her 18th birthday banquet, the Liu family held a grand celebration. It wasn't just to celebrate her coming of age, it was also to let everyone witness the miracle of Willow Liu's recovery. At the banquet, the Liu family treated Makoto as an honored guest. He wore a tailored suit, a gleaming watch on his wrist. Under the bright lights, he wrapped an arm around Willow's waist, smiling brightly as he greeted everyone. They looked like a perfect couple. I had no appetite, so near the end of the banquet, I went out into the yard for some air. Unexpectedly, I ran into Makoto, who was chatting and laughing with Willow. He was holding a bouquet of sunflowers, sounding slightly aggrieved as he said, "Why did you give me this? Everyone else gave roses." Willow answered seriously, "You're warm, like a sunflower. Seeing you makes me happy. What about George? Didn't he grow up with you? What is he like?" I stood in a hidden corner, clearly seeing Willow's expression. She frowned, her face cold with a hint of impatience. Like that, she casually pointed to the clover growing in the yard, without an extra leaf of luck, just an ordinary weed. The night breeze was warm, and the cicadas buzzed restlessly. Their shrill cries sounded just like my racing heartbeat, until it was suddenly doused with cold water and fell silent. I watched as Makoto bent down with a smile and placed a kiss on Willow's cheek. Her ears flushed red, and she shyly averted her gaze, only to notice me standing in the corner. I felt an overwhelming sense of meaninglessness and turned to leave. "George!" Willow suddenly called out and jogged over to me. A faint blush still lingered on her face. "My mom talked to me before. She still hopes we'll apply to the same university," I replied. "Your mom worries too much compared to me. Makoto is obviously more suitable for you." Willow frowned. "But I told my mom, I only want you." I looked up at her in surprise. She turned her head away before continuing. "When I'm sick, I look awful." So that was it. That was why she only wanted me. She reserved her best side for Makoto. While letting her out of control, irritable self hurt me. I had to follow behind her like a nanny, urging her to take her medication on time even if she hated me. Taking care of her emotions, putting her above everything else. That was something the proud little son could never do. From afar, Makoto called out to her, his voice light and cheerful. "Hurry up, Willow. I'll take you to do something you like." But she remained motionless. I knew she was waiting to hear my promise. It wasn't that she didn't know how good I was to her. She just believed it was only natural. I steadied my emotions, then gave her a bright smile. "Of course, I'll always stay by your side." Hearing my answer, she happily ran toward Makoto. The smile in my eyes disappeared. "Willow, after the college entrance exams, you can walk your bright, sunlit path with your sunflower, and I will leave you completely, becoming nothing more than a resilient clover. I just wonder, when you have another episode, will your little son still be able to warm you like before? I'll be watching." Chapter 6. Whenever I took a break from grinding through practice questions, all kinds of rumors about Willow and Makoto would slip into my ears from every direction. People said Makoto had taken Willow to climb over the school wall and skip classes again, or that he had secretly taken her to a music festival in a neighboring province, without telling anyone. My mom said that day, Willow's mother had shown up at the high-speed rail station with a group of people. her face grim as she waited at the exit, only to break into tears when she saw Willow. She saw a radiant, lively Willow. Everyone said Makoto was Willow's salvation, that their story was like a coming-of-age romance novel brought to life. Even my mom looked at me with regret and said, "How come you and Willow just weren't meant to be?" I simply kept working on my questions in silence, completely out of place amid the lively crowd around me. To help senior year students relax, the principal specially organized a Christmas party. It was quite unexpected. Willow actually went on stage to perform. Dressed in a simple white shirt paired with a long black skirt, she stood there quietly, yet effortlessly became the center of attention. "George." I turned at the sound of my name. She lightly twisted her fingers together and asked, "I went next door to look for you. Why weren't you there?" Just because she looked for me, did that mean I had to always be available? "I've already applied to live on campus," I replied. She frowned, clearly trying to recall when I had moved out of that villa. Seeing that she was about to say more, I had already lost any interest in listening. Makoto jogged over to her, wearing a suit. He spread his arms and spun around. "Do I look handsome today?" Willow probably nodded, because I heard Makoto immediately continue. "Then say it, you like Makoto." I curled my lips slightly, not wanting to hear any more, but Willow's voice came through clearly as she asked, "What does like mean?" Makoto froze for a moment, caught off guard by the unexpected response, but he quickly composed himself and explained with a smile. "Didn't you say you feel happy when you see me? That's what like means." Willow nodded thoughtfully, but didn't say anything further. When it was her turn to go on stage, the applause from the audience was thunderous. In everyone's eyes, she was no longer the girl with severe autism, but a calm, composed, and exceptionally talented musician. A cheerful melody flowed from her slender fingers, making it hard to imagine that someone who seemed so withdrawn could have such a rich inner world. I clapped along with everyone else, but I knew the truth. This was the piece she had written for Makoto in my previous life, and now, she was finally playing it openly for her little son. The performance ended. Makoto, dressed in formal attire, walked onto the stage with a smile and presented her with flowers. No one hesitated to praise them as a match made in heaven. Some classmates whistled excitedly, and the cheering nearly lifted the roof off the auditorium. I quietly stood up and left my seat, stepping into the hallway to take a deep breath. Chapter 7. I received a reply from my mom on WeChat. "I've already prepared to divorce your father. George, I will never drag you down." Willow still planned to apply to C University's music academy. When she practiced in the piano room, Makoto would often sit nearby with a textbook in hand, pretending to study. During a break between classes, I happened to pass by the piano room. Inside came a chaotic stream of clanging notes. Makoto was sitting at the piano bench, laughing as he randomly pressed the keys. Willow stood quietly beside him, occasionally reaching out to guide the position of his hands. I suddenly remembered, in my previous life, I had once played the piano for Willow too. Music therapy wasn't a field I liked, but I had a competitive personality. I wanted to do everything perfectly. In private, I practiced over and over again until even my teacher praised my performance as flawless. Only then did I bring Willow to the piano room. But after just a few notes, she said impatiently, "It sounds awful. Don't ruin my piano." My talent in music really couldn't compare to that of a genius, but now I understood. Whether something sounded good or bad had nothing to do with the music itself, only with who was playing it. I was about to look away when I noticed Willow's fingers rubbing together restlessly. After knowing her for so many years, I immediately recognized it as a sign of anxiety. What was she anxious about? "I should take my medicine." She suddenly turned around, rummaging through her bag for her pillbox, but in the next second, Makoto effortlessly snatched it away. "Willow," holding her face in his hands, he said seriously, "I'm different from others. I won't force you to do things you don't like. Besides, you're not sick at all. You don't need medicine." He took her hand, and together, they threw the pills into the trash. "Come on, let's say goodbye to the past." Willow obediently followed his lead and high-fived him in celebration. Her expression seemed lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. I walked away quickly, not wanting to watch any further. During the test on Sunday night, Willow and Makoto rarely showed up in the classroom. Everyone was surprised for a moment, then lowered their heads and focused on answering the questions. This test wasn't easy. Some students clicked their pens irritably. The click sounds were especially harsh in the quiet classroom. Suddenly, without any warning, Willow flipped over her desk and crouched on the floor, clutching her head as she screamed. Chaos broke out around her. The student in front clutched their lower back after being hit by the desk, grimacing in pain. "What's wrong with her? Is she having an episode? Oh my God, that's terrifying. Is she going to hurt someone? She looks like she's gone crazy." Makoto, who sat beside her, kept backing away as if afraid of being affected. He clutched his chest, his face full of panic. "Makoto, go help her." Doesn't Willow listen to you the most? He frowned, shooting an annoyed glance at the student who spoke, then covered his ears uncomfortably. The commotion Willow caused was so loud that even students in the hallway gathered to watch. The homeroom teacher tried to approach her and calm her down, but she shoved him hard, knocking him to the ground. Rubbing his aching arm, the teacher suddenly lit up as he looked at me. George, go calm her down. I put down my pen, just like the countless times before. I skillfully took earplugs from her bag and put them on her. Then I forcefully pried her hands apart to stop her from digging her nails into her own skin until it bled. After a long while, Willow gradually calmed down. She pressed her lips together and looked at me with deep, unreadable eyes, then gently pulled her hand away. Willow, you scared me to death just now. Makoto hurried over, pushing me aside. He looked at the bloody marks on her palms with concern, his voice full of worry. How did it get this bad? Does it hurt? Willow had been looking at me, but upon hearing Makoto's voice, she immediately snapped back to attention and awkwardly reassured him. It's okay, it doesn't hurt, don't worry. Under everyone's gaze, I quietly returned to my seat. After all, my efforts to calm her down could never compare to a few words from Makoto. Chapter 8. After that, Willow's behavior returned to normal. Her emotional outburst during the test seemed like nothing more than a minor incident, quickly forgotten by everyone. However, there seemed to be a slight conflict between Willow and Makoto. Wearing the diamond watch Willow's mother had bought for him, Makoto held Willow's hand and coaxed her. Don't ignore me. I was just scared that day. Anything George can do for you, do you really think I can't? Willow lowered her eyes and said nothing. It wasn't until he added, I'm so handsome even mosquitoes want a bite of me. Want to try too? That she pulled her hand back as if shocked, though a faint smile appeared on her face. During the arts entrance exams, the Liu family made a grand show of accompanying Willow. Outside the exam venue, a photo of Makoto hugging Willow to cheer her on was captured by reporters, drawing envy from countless netizens. Such a good-looking couple. They look like the leads in a youth romance drama. In the photo, Makoto was smiling brightly, while Willow looked up at him, her eyes full of tenderness. I locked my phone screen and continued working on my questions. On the day the exam results were released, Willow's mother specially invited our family over. She openly praised Makoto, who sat beside her. Makoto is truly a blessing to the Liu family with him around. Willow's illness has improved, and she even got first place nationwide. Oh right, George, what university are you planning to apply to this year? My father shot me a disappointed glare before smiling and answering for me. Of course, just like we discussed before, he'll go wherever Willow goes. Willow's fingers curled slightly as she suddenly stared at me and asked, what major do you want to apply for? I paused, then answered honestly. Psychology. It was the field I was most interested in, and I had no intention of changing my decision for anyone. Hearing my answer, Willow Liu first widened her eyes in surprise, then her lips curved into a smile. She seemed to be in an even better mood. After dinner, my father pulled Mr. Liu aside to discuss business. My mother quietly told me that she had already prepared the divorce papers. As we passed through the Liu family's courtyard, I faintly heard that lively voice. Congratulations, Willow. Want a reward? Just like that day. Willow must have nodded, because Makoto's tone shifted as he began complaining about me. George is really thick-skinned. Why does he insist on inserting himself between us? And he even says he wants to apply to the same university as you. He can't leave me. Willow said it with certainty. His family has no money. Only by taking care of me can he live well. Her blunt words laid bare the humiliating truth of my previous life. My mother stopped walking. A strand of hair fell across her face, hiding her expression. I tightened my grip on her arm and resolutely walked away from the Liu residence. Who said I had to go to C University? The place I truly wanted to go was B University, thousands of miles away. Chapter 9. The countdown to the college entrance exams on the blackboard ticked down day by day, and the atmosphere grew increasingly tense. But that sense of pressure at school had no effect whatsoever on Makoto and Willow. Using the excuse that a stressful environment would affect Willow's mood, Makoto even had her mother step in to negotiate with the school, securing them special permission not to attend classes, while we buried ourselves in endless practice papers piling up like mountains in the classroom. He took Willow bungee jumping, hiking, diving, recklessly spending the time that should have been used to prepare for the exams. Hey, look, Makoto posted on social media again. Is he really not afraid of failing the exams? Among the 9 photos he posted, one showed him and Willow holding hands, smiling at the camera with peace signs. The caption read, only when I jumped from the platform did I realize, no exam compares to life and death, and nothing matters more than the person beside you. Why are you worrying about him? The class monitor stretched lazily, his tone full of disdain, mixed with a hint of jealousy. He's backed by the Liu family. Even if he doesn't work hard, he'll still live well. Faced with such reality, everyone couldn't help but sigh. It wasn't until the day of the college entrance exam that I saw Willow again. To everyone's surprise, she looked terrible. Her face was pale, and she had lost a significant amount of weight. Her fingers twitched unconsciously, but no one present noticed anything unusual about her. Makoto smiled as he assured Willow's mother. "Auntie, don't worry at all. Willow and I are in the same exam room. I'll definitely take good care of her." "Right, Willow." Being called on, Willow clutched her pencil case tightly and gave a vague response. Coincidentally, the three of us were assigned to the same exam room. Makoto sat behind Willow, while I was seated far away in a corner. The bell rang. This was a crucial moment that would determine everyone's future. Every student in the room focused, picking up their pens and answering seriously. Everyone, except Makoto. He kept flipping through his test paper, the pages making a loud rustling sound. Perhaps he encountered questions he couldn't solve. He sighed and began spinning his pen. The invigilator lightly tapped his desk as a warning. Makoto scoffed, sat up straight, only to accidentally knock his pen onto the floor. The pen hit the ground with a soft clack. No one expected that this sound would trigger Willow. She clenched her teeth tightly, her face pale as paper, cold sweat forming on her forehead. First, she crumpled her test paper into a ball. Then, uncontrollably, she flipped over Makoto's desk. "You're too noisy." As if venting her anger, she stomped on his exam paper, her hands trembling violently. "Are you sick?" Makoto's eyes widened as he shouted. "If you're having an episode, then have it. But at a time like this, do you have to drag me down too?" Seeing the situation escalate, the invigilator immediately called for help, and both of them were escorted out. Even as they were taken away, I could still faintly hear Makoto's loud curses. The invigilator quickly cleaned up the mess on the floor, cleared his throat, and said, "Students, please focus on your exam. Don't let irrelevant matters affect you." The sense of absurdity in my heart grew stronger and stronger. I never expected Willow's mental state to deteriorate to the point where she couldn't even endure a single exam. Looking at the test paper in front of me, I pushed aside my scattered thoughts. Their exam was already over, but mine was still ongoing. In the following days, neither Willow nor Makoto appeared in the exam hall again. Without their interference, my thinking became much clearer as I answered the questions. When I finally capped my pen and walked out of the exam hall, I saw my mother smiling and waving at me. In her hand, she held a bright red divorce certificate. We had both successfully changed our destinies. Chapter 10. On the day we moved, my father still didn't show up. I had no idea if he was still busy with his big business. In contrast to the cold emptiness of my home, the Liu family next door was unusually lively. Makoto, his voice choked with tears, pleaded with Willow's mother. "Auntie, please let Willow and me go study abroad together. Our college entrance exam results are already invalid. There's no future for us staying here. We might as well try our luck overseas. With me taking care of her, you won't have to worry." Willow's mother let out a cold laugh, her tone icy. "Won't have to worry? Before the exams, you said you'd take Willow out to relax, but when she came back, she was in an even worse state. If it weren't for you, she would have gotten into C university without any problem." Back then, Willow's mother had treated Makoto as the Liu family's lucky star, constantly sending him clothes and luxury goods. But now, she coldly calculated everything she had spent on him, and the total actually reached hundreds of thousands. "You even encouraged Willow to stop taking her medication. That's basically attempted murder. Do you understand? Now pay me back all that money. And don't ever show up in front of me again." The Liu household fell silent for a moment. Not long after, Makoto's voice rang out, desperate and resolute, as if making a final gamble. "You can't drive me away. Willow is already pregnant." My mother shot me a shocked look, and I couldn't help frowning as well. Suddenly, I recalled the ambiguous things Makoto had said on the day of Willow's coming-of-age ceremony. So this was the so-called reward he had been talking about. The Liu family sank into a deathly silence. Then came Willow's mother's explosive shouting, followed by Makoto's arrogant threats. The commotion next door was so loud that it was impossible for us not to hear it. As I stepped out with my suitcase, I unexpectedly saw Willow. Her figure was frail, her gaze empty as she stared ahead. "Go, George?" Her eyes fell on my suitcase. After a long pause, she slowly asked, "You're leaving? Where are you going?" Almost pleading, she said, "Can you play that piece for me one more time?" That piece, the one that had been interrupted after only a few notes back then. Now, she finally had the patience to listen to it all the way through. I shook my head and spoke honestly. "Willow, I don't like playing the piano at all, and now, there's no need for me to play anymore." Perhaps hearing our conversation, Makoto hurried out and stood in front of me, blocking Willow's view. "Willow, whatever piece you want to hear, I'll play it for you." There was no longer any of his usual affected arrogance in his tone, only a hint of cautious eagerness to please. Willow suddenly lost control. She shoved Makoto to the ground, her fists clenched tightly, veins bulging on her forehead. You don't even know how to play. I'm talking to George, what are you interrupting for? If someone nearby hadn't stopped her in time, her slap would have already landed on Makoto's face. Whether in my previous life or this one, it had been many years since I had seen her lose her composure like this in front of others. Makoto clutched his head, sitting on the ground in a miserable state, his face full of panic. As if realizing something, he suddenly turned and shouted at me, "George, aren't you amazing? Hurry and make her stop acting crazy." Looking at the chaotic scene before me, I said calmly, "You were the one who cured Willow back then. This has nothing to do with me." Then, with a faint smile, I added, "Oh, and congratulations, you're about to have a child." Ignoring the noise behind me, I turned and left with my mother. The new home was nice. The rooms were clean and bright. There were no longer piles of my father's empty liquor bottles, nor the suffocating smell of smoke. Chapter 11. My mother's wardrobe was now filled with many sharp, professional women's suits. At first, she sold her jewelry and used her personal savings to make investments. Later, because she had invested in emerging industries of the future, her returns kept growing steadily. Compared to her constant sighing in my previous life, she was now full of energy, and the smile on her face appeared more and more often. The moment she received a call from the admissions office of B University, she excitedly pulled me into a tight embrace. "George, you're truly outstanding." My homeroom teacher also called to congratulate me. Laughing, he said, "George, you're this year's top scorer in the city. You've really brought honor to our school. I bet the media will be coming to interview you soon. Make sure you're prepared." All the effort I had put in had finally paid off. I happily replied to the messages on my phone. Classmates I knew all sent their congratulations, and among them was a message from Willow. "Will you go study abroad with me?" I frowned and, without hesitation, blocked and deleted her. But once someone becomes stubborn, no one can stop them. When I went downstairs to take out the trash, I was surprised to see her waiting there. Willow stood there like a statue, looking pitiful, like a stray kitten abandoned by the roadside. My expression remained blank. Pretending not to see her, I walked straight past her. Suddenly, she stepped forward and grabbed my wrist tightly, her grip so strong that my skin immediately turned red. "Why didn't you reply to my messages?" She looked at me, her eyes filled with confusion and grievance. "You're hurting me. Let go." She released my hand as I said, but still went on planning my future. "You don't have to study psychology for me. Come abroad with me. You can do whatever you want. I'll have my dad give your family some money. You can even move back into your old villa. You're not living well right now. If you stay with me, you can live in a big house and have servants to take care of you." I found it somewhat ridiculous and cut her off directly. "What makes you think I studied psychology for you? Do you think you're the only patient in this world?" Her expression froze for a few seconds. A group of reporters rushed over upon hearing the news. They surrounded me, and it felt as if Willow and I were separated into two different worlds. "George, as this year's top scorer in the city, all the major universities must be competing to recruit you, right?" One reporter joked. "So which school is your top choice?" My gaze passed through the crowd and met Willow's. Then I said, "B University. Not C University, but B University. The one I never got the chance to attend in my previous life." Willow suddenly lifted her head, her eyes filled with disbelief. Chapter 12. Cold sweat broke out across her forehead. Her whole body swayed as if she might collapse at any moment. "Get lost, all of you. Just get lost." She crouched down, fists clenched, and began pounding her head hard. "Is she sick? Depression? Doesn't really look like it." The reporters lowered their cameras and stepped back awkwardly. Only then did Willow's mother arrive slowly with others in tow. Grinding her teeth, she shoved Makoto beside her. "This is all your fault. You shameless disgrace, you've completely led Willow astray. Go on, what are you hiding for? You think getting my daughter pregnant is enough to become my son-in-law?" Makoto's face flushed red. He cautiously tugged at Willow's sleeve, but she forcefully shook him off. The murmurs from the crowd made Willow's mother's face shift between red and pale. In the end, she simply ordered the people she brought along to take action. No matter how Willow struggled, they forcibly dragged her away. The crowd quickly dispersed, but someone had already posted photos from the scene online. "Isn't this that most beautiful art exam candidate from before? How did she end up like this? This guy got someone's daughter pregnant at such a young age. It's pretty obvious he's trying to marry into a rich family." Someone who knew the inside story revealed more details. When people found out that both of their college entrance exam results had been voided, netizens were stunned. "So the girl has autism. Why isn't she taking medication? If making dirty jokes could cure illness, then all my years of studying were for nothing. This isn't being edgy, this is straight up harassment." Chapter 13. After the admission letter arrived, I made plans to go out for a meal with a friend. We walked down the street laughing and chatting, talking about the newly released movies. "George, isn't that Willow over there?" Why is she still haunting you like a ghost? I followed the direction my friend pointed and saw Willow standing under a streetlight. The smile at the corner of my lips faded a little, and I instinctively took a few steps back. She stared at the smile on my face and suddenly spoke. Why didn't you apply to C University? You should have applied to C University, studied music therapy. We could play the piano together, and then get married. Just like in the previous life. I finished her sentence. Willow froze for a long time before finally understanding the situation. She asked me in return, wouldn't that be good, Anne? I already know what it means to like someone. Her eyes were full of stubbornness and sincerity. Liking someone means that once they leave, your life falls apart. It means that more than wanting yourself to be happy, you want the other person to be happy. So, George, I like you. I let out a short, mocking laugh. But Willow, after living through another life, what makes you think I would still revolve my entire world around you? And haven't you noticed, without you, I'm doing better. My life now is 10,000 times better than before, better than my previous life. You always said I was lifeless and boring. Now I'll tell you why. I looked straight into her eyes and said, word by word, because I was exhausted, so exhausted that I couldn't even smile. Taking care of you was really hard. I don't want to be your caretaker anymore. If you really want me to be happy, then don't ever appear in front of me again. After saying all that, I didn't look at her expression. I simply walked quickly back to my friend and left with him. Even if she broke down again, so what? It had nothing to do with me anymore. This time, I would definitely live a far more brilliant life than before. Chapter 14. After going north for university, my mother also expanded her career to City B. Aside from attending classes, I often volunteered with my classmates at special education institutions. There weren't only children with autism here, there were also many kids with disabilities and psychological disorders. They were all groups in need of care and compassion. Willow wasn't the only unfortunate person in this world. She wasn't the only one deserving of pity. While chatting casually with classmates, I would occasionally hear gossip about the Liu family. Have you heard about that scandal in a wealthy family? It's explosive. I heard that Mr. Liu from South City neglected his own biological daughter who's ill, and instead pushed his carefully raised illegitimate son into power. Even being born into a rich family isn't easy. What illness does the daughter have? The girl sharing the gossip curled her lips and said, autism. And she got pregnant at a young age. The child she gave birth to isn't very healthy either. No matter how much money they have, that kind of illness is hard to cure. Shoo, look ahead, that seems to be someone from the Liu family. This was the top-ranked special education institution in the country, so it wasn't surprising they were here. Hearing that, I looked up and saw Willow's mother and Makoto, both heavily dressed and wearing glasses. Willow's mother had lost her former composure and elegance. Among her carefully styled hair were now quite a few strands of white, making her look much older. As for Makoto, he looked even more miserable. He was impatiently trying to soothe the child in his arms. Deep lines etched onto his forehead from frequent frowning. He was only 20, in the prime of his youth, yet there was not a trace of vitality in him. His entire being carried an air of exhaustion and decay. When a butterfly flaps its wings, it changes more than just one person's fate, but the ones left trapped in place were only them. I took a sip of water and walked outside. The sunlight was just right, and my future was bright.